This is the Quantum Biology Podcast, where we break down the practical health applications of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us.
In this episode, licensed marriage and family counselor turned self-care coach Heather Crimson explains why the strategies of quantum health are the missing pieces in the therapeutic model, what it really means to build emotional resilience, and why increasing our energy increases our confidence. We also go into detail about the over-medicalization of mild and moderate depression, why doctors prescribe SSRIs so often, and why regulating neurochemistry with circadian rhythms is a much more effective solution. I loved this conversation. Enjoy. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. I'm really excited to have you. Heather was one of our super early adopters in the Quantum Biology Foundations course. And I was so excited when you signed up because your background is in mental health as a therapist, as a psychologist. So tell us what a psychologist or a therapist would get out of learning about quantum biology.
Oh my goodness, where to start? First, Meredith, I just want to thank you so much for having me. This means a lot to me to be able to have this platform to share and to also just meet with you, because my journey has been about how do I bring this information into the world and how can I reach more people, and doing therapy is a very sacred, act to do. And I only get to work with one person at a time. So I needed a bigger venue, bigger platform, and I didn't know quite how to do that from the therapist chair. And then when I saw your training, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the ticket, right? And so I signed up immediately. I knew just that's what I needed to do. So I really have a lot of gratitude for you for doing the work to make this come alive and make a venue for us to have some structure and some training. So thank you so much. Now I forgot what your question was.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
My question was, and I do so appreciate that. This has been like one of the joys of my life to be able to do this. My question was about why a mental health professional would want to learn about quantum biology. Or applied quantum biology, I'll say.
Right. Once it dawned on me when I did the dive into the literature, the research, and the certification with you, it just became almost overwhelming. Just the lack of knowledge, the lack of information in the field of mental health about quantum biology, about natural light, and how that impacts our mental health. So, of course, you can't separate the physical and the mental, but right. That's very common that we have that bifurcation, unfortunately, like it's mental, and then we have to go to the other doctors for the physical, when really it's a holistic problem. And so once I realized that there's this huge void in all the years because I've been doing this for over 20 years, just all the people I've seen, I mean, it just really hit me like a ton of bricks, like, oh my gosh, all these people I've seen could have benefited so much from knowing that they just needed to get out and get morning light, for example, right? And their depression, their anxiety. And so it just felt like I had to do something. Like I have this calling that I need to speak up, even if I sound kind of like, off the wall, or people look at me sideways, or even my current clients, as my practice has very much, I've downsized a lot. So the clients I've had for a while. So I'm not taking new people, but when I share, I like a little, like if I have an opportunity, I might like throw it out there, or with the newer clients who have anxiety and depression, I might have thrown it out there. And, the looks I get, like, that's interesting. And then it's a nice idea, but it doesn't really sink in, right? It's so new and so different, even though seasonal affective disorder is kind of the bridge, like, okay, the winter time, not enough light, whatever. So people can get that, but how to bring them from that idea that's sort of like just, oh yeah, seasonal affective disorder, to no, this is everything, right? This needs to be the foundation of your health. And if you aren't embracing or exposing yourself to natural light or the principles of quantum biology and all the things about ourselves as electromagnetic beings, it's going to compromise your health. And that includes your mental health. So I just think of all the people I've seen, and I have, files and files of charts back in the paper days, right? Before I went all electronic. And I think, oh, wow. And, it's not that I feel like I'm remiss. It's that missed opportunity, right? How I wish I could have just at least introduced them, because I want to plant the seed. And then if they're going to be hearing about it, because I can tell just by what I see online. Of course, I follow all the quantum biology people, so I have a very, I have a very narrow focus on that. But I can just tell that more and more people are hearing about it. So the work we're doing it's happening. There's the traction, right? There's traction and momentum, and it's starting to multiply. So the more I can talk to people about it, the better. But to answer your question, I realized that I was missing a big piece as a clinician, because my focus has been mostly about somatic work and therapies, somatic trauma work in particular, and how to use the body as the vehicle to effect change and to help unburden the body with whatever unprocessed emotion, right, the client has been carrying around that is compromising their functioning in their body. So there's a lot of overlap there with the somatic work in therapy. And I did a lot of attachment work, and there's a lot of biological stuff involved with that too. I just love all that stuff. But even in doing the somatic trauma work, and I spent thousands of dollars on trainings and, went to all these specialized trainings with the gurus and whatnot. Even then, I felt like there was something missing to really bring them into what I would call a state of high level of health or epic health, right? And I found what it was. It's the quantum biological piece.
So what were the key insights that you had? If those are the pieces that are missing, what are those pieces?
Well, so for example, say with the clients, we do some really significant trauma work. They're really releasing a lot of stored energy in the body of that, whatever it is, fright or grief and whatnot. So, and then they still might feel this malaise. They still might feel not quite as energetic as they'd like to. And I think, well, goodness sakes, like how much more of that, deep trauma work do we need to do for them in order to feel joy, in order to feel more at ease in their bodies, in order for them to sleep better? And so once I started to learn about all of the ways that light impacts us, I know their lifestyle, because, they'll report, I can't sleep, or I was up watching movies, or I can't get up in the morning, or I'm working indoors all day, because I know what they do. And then I think about how what they're doing is preventing them from being able to feel as joyful, as lighthearted, as confident. Because I do think that energy does come from confidence. I mean, have that reverse. That confidence comes from energy, right? Like if you don't feel settled and calm in your body and at ease, I think it just creates a general state of anxiousness, and you don't feel as confident. So I hear a lot about that in the practice over the years. And I want people to feel like it's okay, right? Like everything's okay. Because as you know, from interviewing so many people and probably your own experience and research, is that when things are off in our bodies don't feel safe. And that's important to know about. Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, that makes complete sense about the energy and the confidence. I keep bringing this up lately because it's my experience at the moment, but we recently got a puppy. And I didn't want to get a puppy for a long time, so I didn't want to do all the work. But then I realized I wasn't spending, we picked the house that we live in. We rent this house because it's right next to a forest. And I was walking in the forest like maybe half an hour a week, right? And I'm like, I'm sitting here on the computer all day talking about being outside. So I thought, okay, if I get a puppy, right? So anyway, as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is my morning light has gone from just like standing outside for a few minutes, standing in front of open windows, to walking at sunrise, because that's when puppies wake up, outside for a solid 45 minutes to an hour every morning. And yeah, my energy has shifted, and I've had a lot of breakthroughs, particularly around confidence and making choices and having tough conversations. And so it's so interesting that you said that. Wow. Because I had noticed a lot of things improve, but that connection, that's really interesting. Right. And there was just something like, I just felt better.
That is so fascinating.
And that's the main change that's happened is it is extending my morning sunlight exposure.
What a great N1 to look at how you felt and what you were able to do before that. And then after you've been getting that morning light. That's phenomenal.
That's cool.
Just so amazing.
Yeah, no, I connected it to better sleep and feeling better, but the confidence piece or just more focused and be like, no, I can deal with this. I can work through this. I can have this conversation. I can look at these numbers, all the stuff where it was kind of in a fog. I'm like, yeah.
Right. Well, having been, and I think you have had chronic fatigue. I had, in around 2008 or 9, it started to have, ramp up. And then I just kept getting more and more. And then around 2010 to 2016 those were the worst years. And I didn't have the confidence to do anything. It's like, I just was in survival mode. That's that,
right.
You don't feel safe. You don't feel settled in your body. And so all my energy was preserved just for work, right? Like I had to serve my clients well. I needed that energy to show up. But outside of that, it was just like, okay, let's do the cooking and walk the dog and then, and then I'm taking a nap. So but how sad that makes us depressed and sad. So it kind of all goes together. Energy really is the key. And I was always super energetic before that, but I didn't know how to manage my energy. And I thought it was all about food. No, that was secondary, right? It was all about that I was younger for one, and that I was probably outside more. But what happened is after being in therapy for years, I would be in the morning and I would work all day until the evening. So even though I had a flexible schedule, I didn't get that morning light. I was usually in session, right? Or I didn't get up early. So it's everything. And when I think of mental health, confidence, and energy, people will do anything to try to feel better, right? They'll think of food. And then they think, well, I'm feeling down. I'm not myself. What's going on? They start to do that self-assessment. They start to talk to their friends. They start to Google online. And then they think, maybe I'm depressed, right? Because I'm low. I'm down. I'm not feeling like I don't have the emotional bandwidth that I used to, feeling the range of emotions. I'm not as resilient. And then they think there's something wrong with them. And then they think they need to have medication, right? So that's where the SSRIs come in, because as a therapist, we are trained to assess, right? We have to do the assessment. We have to give the diagnosis. It's a total medical model, which now I'm just like, I don't know, it's too much. I don't want to be a part of that anymore because it pathologizes people, and it's all driven by that whole, not to get political, right? The whole insurance paradigm, the medical model, and they have to follow the protocol. And we are trained. If we don't send them for a med-eval, if the symptoms are strong enough, that's like unethical. So it's a real bind, right? And that's why I'm sort of phasing out, because I don't feel ethically comfortable with that, because the whole thing with medication, that's just a whole nother ball of wax, right? Because I look at it as there's an energy problem in their neurotransmitter function, in their hormonal function, and that is the issue. Unless there's like some serious recent trauma or grief, of course, your system is going to have a change in its state energetically. Yeah. But if it's this sort of ongoing, there hasn't been anything recent, kind of situation, there's something else going on. And that's because of their lifestyle, in my opinion. So we send them off to get a med-eval. That's like standard practice, right? And I have a big problem with that because, as you know, Joanna Moncrief's massive and very well done meta research, literature. She wrote an article, research about that, is that there's no research that shows that SSRIs help or that serotonin is actually the cause of depression. Right? There's no research that shows this. And it's more likely that there's a placebo effect, right? If there's any kind of change in someone's mood or affect, it's about the placebo effect, and that's how strong it is. So, and they don't really know what's happening with those medications, with the SSRIs. And so it's really, I think, very dangerous to go in and playing with our neurochemistry when we don't really even know what's going on.
Right. And when the neurochemistry could likely be balanced out by living a circadian regulated life.
Right. But nobody's going to make a lot of money off of that. When you have such a high percentage of the population medicated, that's really significant. And so that's where the paradigm shifting comes into play. And I do think that it's like profoundly important that people know that there's other options, because I know there are a lot of people who don't want to get on that path, because here's the thing I've seen. Here's the pattern. So they take the medication, then they have a bunch of side effects. And as you mentioned, I just posted about this online the other day, because there's some pretty serious side effects, right? And so some people have lots of skin issues. Some people have insomnia. Some people have low libido. Some people's affect, their emotions are blunted. So then they don't feel much of anything, right? And, or who knows, some people get violent. I just was listening recently to Kelly Brogan. She said that it's correlated with mania and bipolar, that the SSRI can contribute to that. And I hadn't heard that before. And I thought, well, that makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Because what's happening is maybe now if there's a surplus of serotonin. I've also read about that with lights out and TSLA, that now there's a surplus of serotonin. You can get serotonin syndrome. I've had clients with that. That is not good. Like, they are really out of sorts with that. It's dangerous. It's like there's too much.
So that's a side effect of SSRIs, where it's triggering your body to create too much serotonin.
That can happen.
And what are the symptoms of that?
Well, they're manic, basically. So they're very jittery. It's like they're on caffeine overdose. They can't sleep. They're very agitated, and they feel really, really bad. It's not a fun thing. It's not like, yoo-hoo, I have so much energy. Yeah. It's very, very much they're in distress. Yeah.
It goes in. Yeah. It goes bad and it goes sideways.
Yeah.
So, okay. This is really interesting. So as a therapist, you see a pattern of people coming in who you wouldn't clinically classify them with depression. You would see them more in like a depleted state that is leading them to feel like depression. And then on certain types of questionnaires might show up that way. And then as a psychologist, you are bound to then refer them to the medical system, which will likely encourage them to start taking an SSRI.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And your point is that if it's really energy depletion and not full depression, the SSRI is definitely not going to work. And if it is depression, the SSRIs maybe will work. Where are things with that?
Well, I think that I don't think we really can be certain, is my point. And that it could be more of a placebo. Maybe there is some impact on their neurotransmitter function, but I honestly think it's more of a placebo. Right. And some people take these. I've known people in the field who are therapists who've taken them for 20 years. You know, this is like the mindset is that there's something wrong with me, right? Or if this is genetic.
I have a chemical imbalance. I remember I was a young adult when that came into the vernacular, and I was like, oh, okay. And I spent my whole adult life thinking everyone who is depressed has a chemical imbalance.
Exactly. And so therefore I have to take this forever. But not everyone can just take the one dose of whatever it is, the SSRI, and just coast on that for years. Oftentimes what I've seen with clients is that whatever happened in the beginning, which I think is placebo more than anything, they then find that, it's not working as well. So they go back and then they add something else, like, okay, now we're bringing on Wellbutrin, or they'll change it up, and then it's this merry-go-round. So they got more meds, or they're always changing the meds, and it's kind of a nightmare for the client, right? And it's this ongoing saga of how do we get the right medication, combination, and dose? And the whole time, though, nothing else is addressed. So that's my main beef with this. And I think that the unethical piece truly is about that we're not looking at diet. We're not looking at light exposure. We're not looking at all those other things, right? That could strongly impact the client. It's just, let's put the Bandaid on because you're broken. That's the paradigm that I really have a problem with.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, knowing what we know, the idea of prescribing someone a medication that changes their brain chemistry without first regulating their circadian system is just, I mean, it's almost like trying to give a mood stabilizer to a drunk person, right? Like,
right. Exactly. Exactly. Right.
You're just piling drugs on top of a system in chaos.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to pull up your list here. And go through some of the list. So for everybody listening, Heather put this great post on her Instagram, which is at Heather Crimson, HeatherCrimson, Heather Crimson, like crimson red. Okay. So on the left, we have the SSRI column, and on the right, we have the sunlight column. So a side effect of taking SRIs could be suicide. A lot of these things you just mentioned: violent episodes, mania, decreased libido, rashes, insomnia, serotonin syndrome, weight gain, or feeling not being able to have any feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if SSRIs worked as advertised, what are they supposed to do? Like,
well,
just selective
serotonin reuptake inhibitor, they're supposed to make you that you're in your synapses, that it prevents the serotonin from being absorbed into the other neurons. So you have more serotonin available in your brain, basically, is the idea. Because they say that it's a lack of serotonin that creates depression, is their theory, which has never been proven. Right? So it's never been proven, but that's
it is a theory that was created to support the fact they figured out how to make a drug.
Yes, it's exactly the way it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, serotonin is supposed to make you happy. Well, I'm sure it does. So we have a pill for that.
Yes.
Or we made a pill for that. So we'll make a theory to go with it. Okay. So because, as I said, knowing what we know, all of the benefits that are advertised to come from SSRI, we know come from spending a lot of time outside in natural sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one on your list is balanced of the benefits of sunlight versus SSRIs is balanced hormones.
Yes.
So how's the sun helping with that?
Well, your melatonin and cortisol primarily, right? So if somebody is not sleeping well because they have they're inflamed and they have a poor light environment, and then they're missing all the morning light, and then they get up and they have artificial light exposure and they're drinking coffee or eating sugar and whatnot, they're not getting the light coat in their eyes that helps their body to know now is the time we need to have put the melatonin to bed, right? And have some healthy amount of cortisol that's appropriate to get you up and going and feeling good. And like you have the energy to do what you need to do and face the day confidently. And then they feel depressed, so they'll feel down, they're depleted, things are not in balance. They don't have the energy, right? Not to mention the dopamine isn't coming online to help them feel that sense of well-being. So everything's out of balance, because what I call it is they're more synchronized to the artificial world than they are to the natural signals of the natural world. So that's how I see it, is they just don't have that natural morning energy, effervescence, ebullience that they need to have, which that's how I feel in the morning. I feel really like, woohoo, let's go. What am I going to experience today? What great things can I do today? How many cool people am I going to talk to today? That's the way that we should feel in the morning. Yeah.
Right.
Versus this down, this heavy that we call depression. Yeah. I mean, there's clinical depression is that you're bedridden. That's severe, right? They like to, the doctor gurus like to categorize as mild, moderate, and severe. Okay. So really most people would qualify for mild depression, live a modern lifestyle, right? Let's be honest.
Yes.
And that's where the intersection is here between the medical model and our modern lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. Right. Somebody with severe depression is probably compromised because of their lifestyle, but there's probably a lot more going on, like massive unresolved trauma, or they've got some sort of toxicity that's like really high. But this whole mild moderate category is really about that we're not living in a way that supports our biology. Right? We're not synchronizing with the light code at the right times, the natural light code. So in the mornings, if somebody is able to get up and get, like you, Meredith, get out and get that morning light consistently, which of course, with the way that our system is, with everyone going to work at 8 o'clock, unless they're self-employed, right? It's a problem because they're going from home artificial light to car, which filters the light, the windows in the car. You don't get the light code. And then they're going into the office. So it's really, really a challenge. And I think that if people knew how much the morning light impacted their physical and mental health, they would find a way. I really believe that people would find a way. I don't think most people want to sign up for a life of suffering.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there's something about the simplicity of it that people, I find people sort of disregard, right? The suggestion or the idea that sunlight going outside could be the answer. It's kind of like, okay, I guess so, whatever. Right. What I hear you saying is that getting consistent morning sunlight is much more effective and much more aligned with, it's how we were built compared with taking a medication.
Exactly.
We were built to be programmed by light, and we were built to not hate life.
Right. It's like working with our system versus against our system. Right? Like antidepressants and antibiotics and antihistamines. It's like we're fighting something in our bodies. Whereas I want to support people or help people to see that you want to work with your body. What is it your body actually needs and wants versus you trying to work against it like you're waging a war inside of your body?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound as I don't know the word, but like we're waging this battle, like we have to fight the fight and we have to fix the broken things. It's like, no, let's work it's kind of more, it's more of a spiritual way, to be honest. That's how I see it. And I think it's hard for people to understand that it's more about the energy flow. It's more about understanding these subtle ideas about the natural order of the earth, right? And if it's not like a pill, like it's not tangible. It's not tangible. You can go out and you can feel the warmth of the sun, but it's not like looking at a pill. Like this is the solution. I'm looking at the pill. When you're outside, it's too diffuse for people. It's too hard, I think, for people to understand that there's actually, that's the quantum aspect, right? Quantum is hard for a lot of people to understand because it's not tangible. Yes, even though it's massively impactful to us, right? People feel emotion very, very easily. And in fact, emotions are so potent that there's this term called affect phobia, and books written on how to work with clients with affect phobia because they just don't want to feel any emotions, right? No emotions allowed.
Okay. So affect phobia is a clinical term for Absolutely. I'm not interested in having any feelings. Thanks.
I'm terrified of my feelings.
I'm good. I'm fine. All good.
Right. But feelings are energy. So people can understand it from that perspective about the quantum nature of energy, right? So the photons from the sun, the energy of emotions, thoughts are energy, all of that stuff is happening all the time. And because it's not visible and tangible, right, it's harder for us to understand it. And then we tend to either not be interested or dismiss it or not want to go there. We don't want to feel those emotions because they're such potent energy. But that I use as a way to help people understand. Oh, yeah, energy doesn't impact us, right? We are electromagnetic beings. Everything is energy. So that's the gap, how to bridge that gap of helping people understand the power of light, the power of the Schumann resonance, the Earth's resonance, that really does nourish us. And we want to support and work with our natural biology versus trying to intervene in a way, right? Somewhere along that chemical pathway that's supposed to help us, but really, truly will just create more problems. it'll just create more problems.
Right. So we're living a lifestyle, and I think anyone listening to this podcast is probably into natural health enough to understand that a lot of chronic illness is created by lifestyle, right? So that's not a new thing to think about. But what we're talking about is our light lifestyle. So our light lifestyle is wreaking havoc with our hormones. And the next one on your list of benefits of sunlight is neurotransmitter function. Mm-hmm. So it's wreaking havoc with our hormones, which is screwing up our neurotransmitters and lowering our energy and all of these other things. And so we keep ourselves in the environment that's causing those problems and then try to solve them by taking an exogenous chemical substance that was created in a lab.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And you have explained what the outcome of that tends to be.
Right. Well, like the morning light, for example, right? As you know, the backs of your eyes have the melanopsin receptors. It catches the photons of light, turns them into tryptophan. The tryptophan becomes serotonin. The serotonin becomes melatonin. If we don't have the right light in the morning and then the darkness in the evening to convert the serotonin into melatonin, everything gets mucked up, right? Things become imbalanced. You're not able to process things the way they should be. So you may have too much serotonin, not enough melatonin. You need the right light codes at the right time of day. Doesn't mean you have to be out for hours and hours, but you need enough of the light code for your body to go, okay, this is what I need to do right now with this substance. And all of that happens in the quantum fashion, which is, instantaneously. That's all the quantum entanglement. That's all the communications going on in your body. Whereas that one substance in a pill is intervening at one spot and pretty much just it's like barbaric. That's kind of how I look at it. It's very barbaric. It's like using an axe to, chop up a little vegetable, right? It's like that. So there's no finesse in it. You have to support the natural process. So the light, getting that natural light, blocking artificial light at night will help things start right from beginning to end. Or it's more like a spiral, right? There's no end. But keep that process going so that things happen and are balanced, right? Because if you don't get the morning light, then your body doesn't know, okay, we don't need more of this. We're going to pause that. And we're going to go ahead and work on making, the melatonin now. It doesn't get the signals in order to do the right thing at the right time.
Right. So the light controls all of these processes. So what we say to someone is like, you need to get morning sunlight, and they hear like, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But in fact, it's a life-changing habit. And the fact that, the research is the research for all this is there. Jason was looking at a paper this week that was showing that I forget exactly what it was, but it was like for every hour you spend out, they did a longitudinal study. Did you see this one? Like for every hour you spend outside, you reduce your chances of depression later in life or something like that.
Oh, I'd like to see that one. You'll have to send it to me.
I'll have to find it and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very clear. So this is all, this is not theoretical. Like we know all of these things to be true.
Absolutely.
And thanks. That was a really beautiful explanation of what the morning light is doing.
In fact, I've rearranged my whole business, so I have downsized my practice, which has given me more flexibility to work on the quantum biology business. And also, though, I moved all my clients to the afternoon. So I don't even start until 1 or 2. I'm done by 5 or 6, right? So it's a smaller window, but also that means I can spend, unless I'm doing something like this, I'm outside. I am outside. I'm working outside. Luckily this weather here is very moderate, so I can be outside and I can have my computer outside, and I'm pretty much outside all morning, every day. That's just what I do, because I really feel it if I'm not getting enough time outside in the morning, and my health is such that I need that level of support. Like maybe people who have, they're way more hardy than I am. Like I've had a lot of health issues. And so I know that I have to get my medicine, and that's feet on the earth and I'm out in the light. So even though unfortunately our summers here are pretty cloudy, which is kind of not so fun because I'm right at the ocean. So it's like cloudy and a lot in the summer. I'm still getting all the light code. It doesn't matter if there's clouds. I'm maybe not getting as much UVB as I'd like, but I go other places to do that, get a break. But I get it at other times of the year. But I'm outside and it means that much to me, right? Because I know how I feel when I don't get it.
How have you noticed your health changing and your emotional state changing? And you're, it sounds like making a lot of new decisions about your business and about work. And how have you found all those things since you started this practice of scheduling your work around light instead of the other way around?
Well, my energy, I mean, it's just, there's so much, it's like night and day, literally night and day. Like before, I would really have a hard time having the energy to do the things that I want to do. And energy shows up with enthusiasm, with motivation, with excitement, wonder, awe, curiosity. Like I like to live in that space. So I know when I'm not getting enough light because those kind of wane, right? I'm like, wait a minute, who am I right now? I'm not my normal self, right? So I have that zest for life. And that to me, like that really matters to me. Like I have to have joy. And so I've noticed that that's more consistent. And I have some downtimes for whatever reason I didn't sleep while I'm traveling. Traveling's hard on me. But I feel like myself. Basically, I feel like myself. I feel way more emotionally resilient. So I can sort of handle more, if you will. I don't like that word handle more, but I can do more. I can embrace more in my life because I like to do a lot of things. Like I'm not a person who was ever good at like, I'm just going to go do this one job. And then, that's it. Like, like I have to have a lot.
I feel you on that, Heather.
Right? Like I want to be the boss. Like I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. That means I have to do my own business. That means I have to there's responsibilities there. And you have to be able to hold all that. And it's hard to hold all that if you're depleted. So I can hold a lot more, right? Like the things I'm doing now, 10 years ago, I couldn't even imagine, right? So being able to have that opening of yourself and engage with the world and also just take care of yourself, that requires a lot of energy. It's all about the energy, baby, right?
Yes.
So I do whatever I need to do to make sure I'm getting that energy consistently. So I have more emotional resilience. I mean, not to mention, sleep is much better. I used to always want to do stuff at night. That's how I ended up with chronic fatigue is my cortisol and melatonin was inverted. So I would be up, woohoo, like I'm doing all this stuff at 11 o'clock at night. And then I would wake up feeling awful. Now it's like, I don't want to do anything at night. I'm just relaxing, right? I don't even really read as much as I used to. I haven't watched a movie in years. Like I just don't even care anymore. I try to stay off the screens and stuff like that, right? And for an hour or two before bed, I'm just kind of hanging out with my dog, my husband, and relaxing like they used to do.
Yes.
Right? Like they used to do. And then I sleep from 9 o'clock and I don't even wake up until I wake up naturally, which I hear all the quantum people say, oh, I wake up about an hour before sunrise. I never use an alarm anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So my sleep was horrible when I had chronic fatigue. I would be up for several hours every night. And I had really raging histamine issues. Those are much better. Now that is more of a kind of taking time, but the histamine there's a lot of like overlap. I don't think people realize with anxiety and histamine, right? And that's also exacerbated during perimenopause and menopause. Like, oh, I had no idea what I was in store for, but that's much better. And the more UVB light I get on my belly, especially the histamine almost vanishes. It's amazing. Like I can eat fish, chocolate, all the things, right? Bacon, the less UVB light I get, the histamine, it's a little more of a challenge, but but it's nothing like before. Nothing. It was really bad. So that's better. I'm actually 4 years I'm postmenopausal now. So the hormones are better. Right. But if I had found this early on, because I had horrible dysmenorrhea the whole time I was menstruating, which was just like a nightmare. I'd have to go home from work. It was just awful. I wish I had known about the light because I know that it would have been better. I just know. So otherwise, my skin is better. It's just everything across the board becomes better. So on that meme you were talking about that I did with the using the sunlight as prescribed, here's the side effects. There's no negative.
Right.
if you use it as prescribed, like you're not out there when don't have your skin prepared properly, right? You're not going to burn if you use it as prescribed. That's what I'm talking about. I'm living all that.
Right. Yeah. And I can see it. You're telling me how long you've been in practice or you're postmenopausal. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You look amazing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no. And it's like, again, we also have those fear of the sun. It's going to cause wrinkles or whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, if I did have a phase where I was like out in the Florida sun at high noon in August. And I was like, okay, I think I got a few extra wrinkles from that. But generally, yeah, I put on a hat or sit in the shade. It's all, and my skin it's gotten better and better doing these practices. Yeah. If we do them as prescribed, as you said, which would be, okay. So what would that be? So if you have a client come in who fits in, let's say they're presenting in a way that they perhaps feel is mild to moderate depression, but seems to you to be probably more in the energy depletion category. What would be the sunlight routine that you suggest to them?
The routine, the prescription would be to start, I think, with blocking artificial light at night, because it's hard to get people up out of bed and wanting to go outside if they don't feel good in the morning. So blocking artificial light at night, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, right? The front and the back. So the nighttime and then the morning is where I focus. Right. So starting with those two times, but starting at night, because most people hopefully would be willing to wear some blue blocking glasses at night. Mm-hmm. And most people are going to have artificial light on at night, or they're going to have the flat screens on. And, and I get that. There's family time and, we're sitting down with your partner to watch something. I get that. But at least protect your eyes. So when I explain to people about how if they're not sleeping well, if there's not enough melatonin, because the blue light prevents melatonin secretion, right? So they're not going to sleep well. They're not going to self-clean. They're not going to run their cleaning systems of autophagy and apoptosis. So they're going to be inflamed in the morning, and they're not going to want to get up. They're not going to feel like going outside. They're just want to kind of get through the morning and get on with the day. So starting at night, right, blocking the artificial light. And that's $30 to buy a pair of blue blockers from, say, Midwest Red Light Therapy. It's one of my favorite companies. So, and then in the morning, I would say, okay, once you have been doing that, now let's get you out as soon as you can get out there and naked eyes to the sun, right, or morning light. And get that morning light exposure for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Like that's the bare minimum that I would tell somebody that they need to start with.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point too. If mornings are really rough, don't start with the morning. Yeah. Start with the evening. So you clean up your evening, the mornings get a little less rough. Then you add a little morning light, feel a little better. It's easier to get the evenings darker.
Yes.
This
yes.
Virtuous happy cycle.
Yes.
Okay. So before we wrap up, I want to circle back to our conversation about emotions.
Okay.
And you were talking about emotions being a form of energy. So in addition to counseling people on, how to manage their light environment, could you talk to me about how you counsel people, how to manage strong emotions and what type of energy is it? And when you say like, we feel more emotionally resilient, what do you mean by that?
Great questions. So basically, I use the idea of somatic attunement to work on or develop a skill, right? It's more of a practice of understanding that emotions are sensations in your body. So that energy of the emotion, I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of frequency it is, but it's like there are physical sensations in your body, and that's how the energy manifests, right? You're feeling like a pinch here, you're feeling flutter, you're feeling panic, you're feeling tightness. Your body is doing all these things. And that's what we call emotion. So emotion is like a feeling with a body sensation. So it could be fear, it could be sadness, right? Whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But the body is experiencing all of that. So I always teach people that how to manage, or we call it emotional regulation, is really about befriending your bodily experience. because it gets you out of your head, because your head is going to get in the way at first, right? Your head's going to say, oh my God, what is this? And I don't want to feel this. And then what we do is we kind of bear down, and we have ways of cutting off that emotional frequency. In other words, we try to squelch it, right? We try to get it to stop because of all of the social conditioning about emotions. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, I wanted to come in to the session today and not to cry. That was my goal. I'm like, well, why are you coming to therapy? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that.
I was going to say, that's probably a good strategy if you're in a meeting at work, but
yes, exactly. And it's so, because the shame, people have been shamed for being human, and it's just tragic, right? And so we get all this trapped emotional energy that your body hasn't been able to release through allowing those sensations to work through to completion. They're ephemeral. It's quick. Yeah. Right. But the more that we kind of hold our breath, scrunch down, tighten our whole body so that it will stop, right? We don't want it to happen. It stays stuck in there. And I know that that's what creates inflammation, because you have these trapped pockets of energy in your body that are stuck there. Right. And so things can't flow. Your body's energy systems are compromised because there's all this, and even if people are super healthy, right, they still will start to have some kind of symptoms. Like, I have clients who were former, like super high level college athletes. And now they have all this pain because they're like, nope, can't talk about that. Nope, can't go there. Right. Nope, can't figure out how to do this with the emotional piece. Right. Not going to go there. Right. And their bodies get locked up. And so you're more brittle. It's kind of like you snap, right? Or you'll eventually get some sort of, people who have a lot of that will get some sort of chronic disease. It's really sad because your body cannot heal itself, right? Your energy isn't flowing, so the body can't do what it needs to do. So somatic attunement, Meredith, is really about, can I just get out of my head for a moment and just notice a sensation in my body and really track it? Like, I ask clients when I'm doing somatic trauma work, it's kind of a blend of EMDR and somatic experiencing. Okay. And I have them get super granular. Like, what exactly how big is this spot of pain? What kind of pain is it? How deep is it? I mean, and so what we're doing though, is we're helping them to stay with the sensation by engaging their preorbital prefrontal cortex, which is where mindfulness occurs. Okay. So instead of judging it, instead of freaking out about it, they're just curious and they're noticing it. And guess what happens? They're able to stick with that sensation, and then it shifts, right? Without them trying to not feel or trying to get rid of it or whatever. So the sensation, and sometimes it moves, sometimes more emotion comes up that's just really clean, pure emotion. That's more about grief usually for people, right? Yes. We're releasing that unprocessed emotion that's been stored in our body. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. And then some. Amazing. So the sensation is connected to the emotion that you're working with.
Well, emotion is sensation, or it's the body sensation with, like, so there's the sensation and then the feeling. Like, so in my stomach, if I have a pit, it's like this hollowness and there's fear. So there's all of that together. Yes.
Okay. I love this. So I'd love to just run through like some of the key emotions. So I'm thinking, you said that about the pit in the stomach. I'm thinking of, I get an email and I read it quickly and I think I've forgotten to do something really important. And now I'm in trouble. And it just like the bottom drops out, right?
Yes.
I have ADD, so this is like a common fear for me.
Yes.
Right. And it's like the bottom drops out of your stomach and it's like, I want to fix it as quickly as possible so I can stop this feeling. Like what's happening with me? What from your perspective?
You see how that quantum thing happens instantaneously, the sense of danger. Uh-oh. Yes. Not safe. See, that's the felt sense in the body, right? that all of your body systems, probably even your mitochondria, the vagus nerve, right? All of the parts of you, your amygdala, all of it is instantaneously registering not safe. Boom. And that sensation is the response of that. That's how fast the thought it goes into your body, right? So thoughts are frequencies, and then everything else is a frequency. So it's all happening almost instantaneously. It's a nanosecond between, oh shit, the email.
Yes.
And then your
Yes, you're
body
right.
goes,
That is a total quantum
Right.
response, like a full body, full mind. Everything is like,
yes. Yes. So it all happens in concert. And that's your body saying, oh, something's not safe. Right. So then the instinctual response is, I got to fix it.
right.
I got to figure out what to do so that I don't have to feel this dread or this. And the thing is, it happens so quickly that we're not even aware of most of it. Right. We're just aware of something's not right. And I don't know what to do. I got to do something.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I used I'm now able to pause, but I used to just rush into the first thing that came to my mind to fix it. And then I would end up in all these unmanageable situations because I'd be overcommitted and I'd say this and I would just be like, I'll take care of it. I'll do it. Like,
well, that's survival mode.
It was like yeah. Okay.
So you're in survival mode. The key to preventing that lapse, right? Which is understandable because that's the instinctual response. I got to figure out how to survive.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. However, it takes such a massive toll on us, right? Our energy expenditure in that whole time frame is massive. So in order to help ourselves preserve our energy and take that pause, which is, it's really just a pause, it halts that from that, all those things from that cascade of events.
Yes.
From playing out fully. And we want that little pause to go, wait, oh, hold on. Right.
Right.
Ooh, let me just notice what's happening right now. So as soon as you can engage that mindfulness from the orbital prefrontal cortex and then get a little bit of space to pay attention to your body and to resource yourself. Resourcing is, I'm okay. It's okay. I got this. Or whatever your phrase is in the moment, I'm safe. Like I've done that a lot because I have a big trauma background, a lot of trauma. And so I'll just be like, I'm safe. It's okay. Right? I got this. Remember all that, because we forget how resourceful we are. Look at all the things I've gone through. Like, hello. Like, oh yeah, there you are. So we have to remember who we are, and that we do that by being present in the moment and orienting using our senses. So what I have clients do is I have them turn inward, noticing their physical experience, the actual physical sensations, and simultaneously, once they've done that, so that just has to take a few seconds, they want to orient using their senses. Even turning your neck slowly from, not like you're really like hurting yourself, but turning it all the way to the left and then very slowly scanning your environment to the right. It helps engage a part of your vagus nerve, right? Called the ventral vagal, which is the social engagement system, versus dorsal vagal, which is where we get to more and more collapse and shut down because we're overwhelmed. So even just turning and looking and scanning your environment helps bring you back into a state of safety. Yeah. And then using smell, using like looking at colors, like where's all the orange right now? Very specifics. Really brings you back into what we call your window of tolerance, which is where you can feel and deal at the same time with whatever's happening inside and outside of you, versus being dysregulated, which is when you're in survival mode and you're either in ramped up mode, fight or flight or freeze, high like energy freeze, or you're shutting down, which is more the depressives, right? And going into full shame and shut down in dorsal vagal, which is like, I can't even cope and I don't look at me and I don't have a voice. It's bad, right? All of that stuff.
Right. So interesting. Well, I have so many questions I could ask, but I'm going to hop to a different feeling. So when a person, let's say we're experiencing joy. Now, I have noticed over the course of my adult life that, and this has to do with my particular life experience, it's not universal, but I have noticed that I also trigger that kind of need to, I'm not safe. with happy feeling, right? With happy feelings,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like I will be in a moment and I will feel the appreciation of that moment and that joy and that like everything's all right. And like there's often, I'm learning to ignore it. There's often this crushing counter argument that comes in. It's like, no, it's not. Like, oh, well, what about this? What do you have with that? Well, you haven't filed your taxes yet, right? Or whatever.
Oh no, all the things come up. Yeah.
Right. But it feels like that joyful energy is probably quite like on a quantum level, probably quite healing. Would you say?
Oh, absolutely.
And so the practice of learning to let that flow and not need to block it or hold on to it with like, okay, I feel happy now. I have to feel happy forever.
Right. It's so interesting that you say that. And I'm really glad that you did, because as much as we don't want to feel bad, there's some things that happen to us where feeling good isn't safe either. Right.
Yeah.
It's very strange. We wouldn't normally think of that as being something that we start to get triggered by.
Yeah.
But there's usually some kind of experience. See, the body remembers everything. So no matter when it happened, pre-verbal, pre-conscious memory, because memory doesn't kick in until anywhere between 2 and 5, right? So, it could have been some small thing that happened where your parents were maybe having a struggle in that moment and you were like happy and they're like, meh,
Yeah.
little things like that. But your body always remembers like, ooh, that wasn't good to be happy in that moment. Or whatever combination or, history of events that you've been through. That sometimes can really have a deep impact on us, and our body holds that. And I think also the thing that in this society that's really interesting is that we're not really given permission to feel really good.
Yeah.
It's really sad. I actually have a coach who I just love to pieces. I met her in Clients on Demand, and I've been working with her for several years now. That's all she does is helps people to women give themselves permission to feel good.
Right. What a great niche. Good for her.
It's
I
amazing.
love that. Yes.
Because we are kind of conditioned to have to effort, to struggle, to, we cap our joy. And it's like, no, I have to be working hard and it has to be hard. And no, that's not really, I think of the like people way, way back in the day or whatever, they would hunt and they would gather and they'd take care of all the basic stuff. And then they would just like play. Like, oh, we're going to rest. Yeah. We're going to hang out now. We're going to enjoy the sun. We're going to sing. We're going to dance. We're going to have, be in our humanity. And that's our natural state once we're safe. So we got our housing, we got our food, we got the things taken care of. And can I be safe now? But I want people to have that as the norm, not like I have to effort and hustle and struggle. And then I can take a vacation for 2 weeks every year. Like, what's that? Right? What? Right. So this is to bring it full circle, Meredith. That's why I'm so passionate about quantum biology, because I think it brings us back into our humanity and anchors us and grounds us into our beingness, which is I can go outside and feel the earth under my feet and breathe in the sea air and see the birds and the butterflies and have joy. And that's enough, right? I don't need to have all the fluff. I don't need to buy anything. I don't need to make some, fancy vacation or whatever. I mean, that's all fine, but really it's very simple. As you stated earlier, it's just, can I be in my natural state right now?
Yes. Which is always available.
Yes.
Just like the sunlight is always available.
Yes.
And so spending that time outside and going outside, especially in the morning, to bring it back full circle, the emotional resilience that helps us to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel safe, we can feel our feelings and then they flow on their way.
Right. They move through us. They're not meant to camp out inside of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Heather, thank you so much. This was a delightful conversation. How can people find you and engage with your work around this?
My website is enlightenedmood.com. Instagram is at Heather Crimson. Those are the best places. Yeah,
Okay.
Heather at enlightenedmood.com, email.
All right. And we will also put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank
Beautiful
you so much for having me.
conversation.
Okay, thank you.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology Certification, a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.